Try to straighten you guys up. Yeah, there you go. Okay. My shirts. Just hang them up. There we go. Okay. All right, and we're back. Oy. Stormer Show is live again. Aha. Okay. I think I think we can have a back-to-back stream today. Dorian, and then quick exercise set afterward, like the good old Stormer Show times. Okay, but I've been having a lot of fun reading through Dorian. As I've said, I'm also reading through Sapiens right now. And I don't know. Yeah, just drop in the chat if you'd like to see me try reading Sapiens on stream. I've done so before, and my commentary shifts to match what it is I'm reading. So, as we're reading through Dorian, I'm talking more about literary elements and plot. In Sapiens, my own narrative would probably be more philosophical in nature. It would be more political, analytical, that kind of stuff. So, for example, today in Sapiens, Yuval explains a little bit about the scientific revolution, how the rate of change for Sapiens is accelerating. From 1000 to 1500, there weren't all that many major developments. But in this day and age, we've got stuff like, as Hassan points out, like aircraft carriers, right? We've got atom bombs. We landed on the moon in the last, 60 years, if I'm not mistaken. 1967, I believe, is the date we landed on the moon. So yeah, it's like, and yeah, like the Taliban taking over Afghanistan right now. It's like, if we spent some of that military budget on R&D, scientific developments and discoveries, like, who knows what the human race is, going to be capable of in even just 5-10 years down the line, 20, 50 years. Yeah, it's like we're definitely accelerating. Homo sapiens are as a race, the human race. And yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. Like, smartphones are another example. It's like we didn't even have these like 50 years ago. It's that rate of change, rate of progress. It keeps on accelerating. And yeah, R&D, research and development. I think there was something else I was going to say about it, the scientific revolution, but I forgot. Sometimes that happens. Just got to try to explain the most important ideas while they're still on the top of my head. Okay. But yeah, I think the important concept I was going to try to get across is reallocation of the budget, spending less on military and more on research and development. and even the COVID situation, it's like if you look at the Delta variant, like it's maneuvering around the vaccine. I don't even think the vaccine's been FDA approved, like, and no one ever talks about that kind of stuff. But anyways, it's like, yeah, it's like researching to try to understand more about the way those microorganisms interact with our bodies. It's like microcosms and macrocosms. Yeah. Yeah, microcosms and macrocosms. And if you look at like some of the stuff that we're doing in space, like the Jeff Bezos flight, whatever, yeah, the organization that he flew to space on, what is it called, Blue something or other? They're suing NASA right now. But that's a good case in point example of like forward thinking. Like we're exploring, we're trying to cross boundaries that existed. Yeah, blue. What the heck? Like, I got it. Blue Origin. Blue Origin. I can't remember the name of it. But yeah, it's like space exploration. That's one of the frontiers. They say the final frontier, space. So yeah, that was my brief Sapiens breakdown. But yeah, if it's something you guys would like to hear me like discuss more and talk about more on my show, on my stream, you can let me know through the chat or through a suggestion. I'm also at stormershow@gmail.com for any inquiries or anything like that. Yeah, even my emails, I try to stay on top of them. It's like a lot of correspondence, a lot of information. But yeah, all right. Without further ado, let's dive into Dorian. But yeah, I could start doing Sapiens in addition to Dorian. Basically, try to balance both of them. But I am reading Sapiens right now. I'm just reading it off stream for the most part. But yeah, I can read it more on stream, especially if you all would like to hear more about my philosophical ideas, political ideas. Yeah. But anyway, let's dive back into Dorian. We are in chapter 8. I'm sorry. We just finished chapter 8. And I don't know. I might try to do more books like this where it's like they're just literary masterpieces. Like 100 Years of Solitude could be cool. I Have War and Peace, so that's another one I could try. Pretty heavy stuff, but if I could read it on stream, that'd be pretty cool. Okay. Anyway, so last time in Oscar Wilde's novel Picture of Dorian Gray, Dorian's trying to make up for his cruel breakup with Sybil. Lord Henry comes in to tell him, he's like, didn't you get the news? Sybil died. And Dorian, somewhat racked with guilt, he's like, did this happen because I broke up with her? It's like without that love, without that feeling of love in her life, did she stop seeing the point of life? Did the end of our love end her life? Much like Juliet in Romeo and Juliet. And trying to pause my TV. Come on. I just want to pause. Alright, there we go. Yeah, part of it's the internet here, guys. I've been working on trying to get the internet improved. But yeah, I think it's good enough for these streams. Hopefully my stream doesn't drop. Okay. Okay. So yeah, he is trying to. Dorian was trying to make up for his cruel act, his breakup with Sybil. I personally think it was very abrupt and short-sighted of him. It's like he he broke up with her because of her bad acting. She had a bad night, and I don't know. I think he needed to see past that small uh, that one instance. He just needed to see past because there were so many other plays that he saw of hers where he was enthralled by her performance. It's like maybe he could have and should have spent more time remembering and reminiscing on those performances instead of focusing on the one performance that she had that wasn't perfect. And in reality, as Sybil explained, he was the reason why her performance wasn't perfect. She had something else to fall back on. And then he ends up pulling that away, and as a result, his portrait, the one that Basil painted of him, changes. Alright, let's continue on in chapter 9 and see if Dorian is actually able to get this portrait to change based on his good deeds. Maybe he can make it go back to the way it was. As I stipulated yesterday, he might be able to talk a little bit with, or conference a little bit with Basil, the original creator of the painting, and see what his thoughts and ideas are. But yeah, let's see what direction Dorian decides to take. As he was sitting at breakfast next morning, Basil Hallward was shown into the room. "I'm so glad I have found you, Dorian," he said gravely. Speaking of whom? Is it? Yeah, I think it is whom. Speaking of whom? Or speaking of him? Speaking of, yeah, I can just say speaking of, I guess. It's always one of those things, like who or whom. "I called last night and they told me you were here at the opera." Of course I knew that was impossible. "But I wish you had left word where you had actually gone to. Where you'd really gone to. I passed a dreadful evening, half afraid that one tragedy might be followed by another. I think you might have telegraphed for me when you heard of it first. I read of it quite by chance in a late edition of the Globe that I picked up at the club. I came here at once, and was miserable at not finding you. I can't tell you how heartbroken I am about the whole thing. I know what you must suffer. But where were you? Did you go down and see the girl's mother? For a moment I thought of following you there. They gave the address in the paper. Somewhere in the Euston Road, isn't it? But I was afraid of intruding upon a sorrow that I could not lighten. Poor woman. What a state she must be in. And her only child, too. What did she say about it all?" So yeah, hopefully Basil's able to shed some light on this. But yeah, he doesn't really have a relationship with Sybil or her mom. So yeah, he can't. He's thinking like, what difference can I make? "My dear Basil, how do I know?" murmured Dorian Gray, sipping some pale yellow wine from a delicate gold-beaded bubble of Venetian glass, and looking dreadfully bored. "I was at the opera. You should have come on there. I met Lady Gwendolen, Harry's sister, for the first time. We were in her box. She's perfectly charming, and Patty sung divinely. Don't talk about horrid subjects. If one doesn't talk about a thing, it has never happened." It's like out of sight, out of mind, but about ideas. It's like if you don't say anything about it, people will never know. It is simply expression, as Harry says, that gives reality to things. It's like the weaving of tales. Yeah, it's like talking about things give them life, give them meaning. I may mention that she was not the woman's only child. There is a son, a charming fellow, as we know, James Vane, I believe, but he is not on the stage. He is a sailor or something. And now, tell me about yourself and what you're painting. Yeah. Yeah, James Vane is the brother. I wonder if he's still in Australia. You went to the opera, said Hallward, speaking very slowly with the strained touch of pain in his voice. You went to the opera while Sybil Vane was lying dead in some sordid lodging? You can talk to me of other women being charming and of Patty singing divinely before the girl you loved has even the quiet of a grave to sleep in. Why, man, there are horrors in store for that little white body of hers. It's like he's saying, like, how have you moved on so soon? It's like the woman that you were engaged to kills herself, and you're already moved on to other topics. It's like, yeah, it's like, shouldn't you be grieving? That's where Basil's coming from. Stop, Basil! I won't hear it! Cried Dorian, leaping to his feet. You must not tell me about things. What is done is done. What is past is past. Yeah. And as we recall, that's what Lord Henry was saying, is that what's good about the past. Like, what's good about the past is it's behind us. But in Dorian's case, I would say don't be so soon to move on, because at the same time and by the same token, there are things that we can learn from in the past. Your painting is still changed, Dorian. Don't forget that. Like, you have a quite painful reminder of the past in the expression on the painting. So maybe it's not time to move on yet. You called yesterday the past? Yeah, and Basil remarked how soon ago it was. Like, it wasn't actually that long ago. And I think it wasn't actually that minor. Like, someone dying, especially when they're that close to you, is pretty significant. What has the actual lapse of time got to do with it? It is only shallow people who require years to get rid of an emotion. I would say maybe it's the other way around, Dorian. You got it twisted. It's like reflective people take the longest to get over emotions. Shallow people are the ones who are like, nothing really matters. They're the ones who are the fastest to get over things, I think. A man who is a master of himself can end a sorrow as easily as he can invent a pleasure. He's like thinking about it like self-control. But I don't think that's necessarily the whole picture. I don't want to be at the mercy of my emotions. I want to use them to enjoy them and to dominate them. Like, he wants emotional mastery. But I think he's missing like the empathy piece. Like, he's missing the part where he relates to other people. Dorian, this is horrible. Something has changed you completely. You look exactly the same wonderful boy who, day after day, used to come down to my studio to sit for his picture. But you were simple, natural, and affectionate then. You were the most unspoiled creature in the whole world. Remember, it's like that white hill he's describing, like that snow-covered hill. It's like he was perfect then. In Basil's mind and eye, it's like almost like virgin snow, as they say. Like, it hasn't been touched, and now it's like people are walking all over it and stuff. Yeah, I would say people. Yeah, it's like the actual experiences are people walking over it.
You were the most unspoiled creature in the world. Now I don't know what has come over you. You talk as if you had no heart, no pity in you. It is all Harry's influence. I see that. Yeah, maybe. The cold-hearted cynic. like Lord Henry's been around the block, and we can see that evidenced in a lot of things that he says. It's like innocence. Like his innocence was destroyed by Lord Henry, and I don't know if that's completely fair because part of it is based in Dorian's natural sense of curiosity. Like he wanted to grow, and he did, but it maybe wasn't in the best way with how things passed. The lad flushed up and going to the window looked for a few moments on the green, flickering, sun-lashed garden. I owe a great deal to you, Harry, Basil, he said at last. More than I owe to you. You only taught me to be vain. He's saying he owes him a lot. And I would say that that's in terms of his own widening of his own perspective. It's like part of it is innocence and part of it is ignorance. It's like he was innocent and ignorant, like he didn't really know all that much. And then Lord Henry's talking to him, and it's like it's opening his mind. It's increasing his perspective. Well, I'm punished for that, Dorian, or shall be someday. I don't know. Yeah, he's saying he like, and as we recall back then, I think it was in chapter 2. It's like Basil didn't want Dorian to meet Lord Henry for that reason. It's like he didn't want him changing the way that he thought and the way that he was. I'm punished for that, Dorian, or shall be someday. I don't know what you mean, Basil, he exclaimed, turning around. I don't know what you want. What do you want? I want the Dorian Gray I used to paint, said the artist, sadly. Yeah, I feel bad for Basil. He's like, I just want it to be the way it was before all this happened. And he was resisting it all the time, too. But at the same time, Basil was kind of like the La La Land guy. He's like, Dorian is the best. La 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 la. And then it's like Dorian changes and he's like, his whole world crumbles. Basil, said the lad, going over to him and putting his hand on his shoulder. You've come too late. Yesterday when I heard that Sybil Vane had killed herself. Killed herself? Good heavens. Is there no doubt about that? Cried Howard, looking up at him with an expression of horror. She OD'd, basically. My dear Basil, surely you don't think it was a vulgar accident. Of course she killed herself. The elder man buried his face in his hands. How fearful, he muttered, and a shudder ran through him. No, said Dorian Gray, there's nothing fearful about it. It is one of the great romantic tragedies of the age. As a rule, people who act lead the most commonplace lives. They're good husbands or faithful wives or something tedious. You know what I mean. Middle-class virtue and all that kind of thing. How different Sybil was. She lived her finest tragedy. She was always a heroine. I mean, yeah, there's definitely something very poetic about Sybil's character. Like I often draw comparisons between her own demise and Juliet's demise. It's like when they kill themselves when they see their loves died. And this sometimes happens in real life too. Sometimes it happens like naturally, where what you'll see is like when two people are married for an extremely long period of time, and it's like the husband or wife dies, and then the other one dies like just a couple days after. Like sometimes that actually happens in real life too. And then sometimes it doesn't happen. Sometimes it's like there's a married couple and they're married for an extremely long time, and then like the husband or the wife dies, and then the other one keeps going on. Oftentimes with feelings of hopelessness, it's like, why are what we call survivor's guilt? It's like, why am I still here? Sometimes that happens too. Yeah, I don't know. It's really interesting. Yeah. It's like, I don't know. Yeah, it's interesting and strange too at the same time. Comparing and contrasting the dates that lovers die. The last night she played, the night you saw her, she acted badly because she had known the reality of love. When she knew its unreality, she died as Juliet might have died, as I have also observed. She passed again into the sphere of art. There is something of the martyr about her. Her death is all the pathetic uselessness of martyrdom, all its wasted beauty. I'd say so. But as I was saying, you must not think I have not suffered. If you'd come in yesterday at a particular moment, about 5:30 perhaps, or 5:45, you'd have found me in tears. Even Harry, who is here, who brought me the news in fact, had no idea what I was going through. I suffered immensely. Then it passed away. I cannot repeat an emotion. No one can, except sentimentalists. And you're awfully unjust, Basil. You come down here to console me. That's charming of you. You find me consoled and you are furious. How like a sympathetic person. I don't know. I don't know, Dorian. I think Dorian needs to open his mind more to Basil. Because Basil, as it points out, the elder man buried his face in his hands. It's like he does have the wisdom of experience too. He just has a different take, and like he's a different perspective than Lord Henry. That doesn't mean he's an emotional ninny. Like it doesn't mean he's like an overly sentimental person. Like he's still trying to help Dorian, but Dorian, for some reason, only likes hearing certain views. Maybe it has to do with past experience. I'll be back. I have to go to the bathroom, guys. Excuse me. Okay, I'm back. Okay, where are we? Yeah. Dorian's like, he's like, Basil, You're trying to make me feel bad about uh, being partly responsible for Sybil's death. What's wrong with you? It's like, come on, Dorian. You need to be a little bit more reflective than that. Okay, let's see. Where are we? Yeah, you come down here to console me. That's charming of you. You find me consoled and you're furious. How like a sympathetic person. You remind me of a story Harry told me about a certain philanthropist who spent 20 years of his life in trying to get some grievance redressed or some unjust law altered. I forget exactly what it was. Finally, he succeeded and nothing could exceed his disappointment. He had absolutely nothing to do. Almost died of ennui. And became a confirmed misanthrope. It's like he spent 20 years trying to build a bridge, and then once the bridge is built, his life purpose had been fulfilled. Kind of thing. And besides, my dear old Basil, if you really want to console me, teach me rather to forget what has happened, for to see it from a proper artistic point of view. Was it not Gaudier who used to write about La Consolation des Arts? I remember picking up a little vellum-colored book in your studio one day and chancing on that delightful phrase. Well, I'm not like that young man you told me of when we were down at Marlowe together. The young man who used to say that yellow satin could console one for all the mysteries of life. I love beautiful things that one can touch and handle. Old brocades, green bronzes, lacquer work, carved ivories, exquisite surroundings, luxury, pomp. There is much to be got from all these. But the artistic temperament that they create, or at any rate reveal, is still more to me. To become the spectator of one's own life, as Harry says, is to escape the suffering of life. It's like if you can watch your own life as a movie, you don't have to experience any of your agonies and tragedies. You don't have to experience any of your pain or suffering. It's like, kind of like, I guess, the Truman Show or something like that in a way. It's like just, or maybe it's closer to that song like Videotape by Radiohead. It's like, just record it all to watch, so that way you don't have to actually live through it. Because when you have to live through it, it's going to be a much bigger pain in the buns. Okay. Yeah, to become a spectator. I guess it's also kind of like that song by Tool, Vicarious. I live vicariously while the world dies. It's like you just want to watch it, you don't want to have to actually experience it. Because experiencing life is the heart of human suffering. It is the stuff of pain. Okay, I know you are surprised at my talking to you like this. You've not realized how I've developed. I was a schoolboy when you knew me. I'm a man now. Love-hate ain't out lately. Wanna glide, but in a different way today. Robert Downey Jr. and Kimberly Glide reference there. And that's what Dorian's saying here. I have new passions, new thoughts, new ideas. I'm different. But you must not like me less. I am changed, but you must always be my friend. Of course, I'm very fond of Harry, but I know you're better than he is. You're not stronger, you're too much afraid of life. But you are better. And how happy we used to be together. I would say, in comparison to Lord Henry, Basil, by comparison, is definitely more of an optimist. He's definitely more of a glass half full kind of guy. He's not like, everything is tosh. You know, like, he can see the brighter side, especially when he focuses more on the fonder moments. Like when Dorian was young, for example. Don't leave me, Basil, and don't quarrel with me. I am what I am. There's nothing more to be said. Yes, Dorian, but that doesn't mean you can't improve as a person. That doesn't mean you can't conquer your own vices. That doesn't mean that you cannot experience personal change. I mean, we're always changing. Why not for the better. The painter felt strangely moved. The lad was infinitely dear to him, and his personality had been a great turning point in his art. He could not bear the idea of reproaching him anymore. After all, his indifference was probably merely a mood that would pass away. There was so much in him that was good, so much in him that was noble. Again, Dorian, Basil focusing on all the positivity, the good things that are happening. Well, Dorian, he said at length with a sad smile, I won't speak to you again about this horrible thing after today. I only trust your name won't be mentioned in connection with it. Yes, that's right. They are still trying to pin it on Dorian. They're trying to get him for the death of Sybil Vane, like blame him for her death. The inquest is to take place this afternoon. Have they summoned you? Dorian shook his head, and a look of annoyance passed over his face at the mention of the word inquest. It's like, they're trying to lock me up for Sybil's death. Like, that's how it works, Dorian. As I alluded to yesterday, it's like the ex is always the first suspect. The primary suspect. Just look at O.J. Simpson. There was something so crude and vulgar about everything of the kind. They don't know my name, he answered. But surely she did. Only my Christian name, and that I'm quite sure she never mentioned to anyone. As we might recall, she referred to him for the longest time as Prince Charming. So several of the characters pointed out she didn't actually know his name. She told me once that they were all rather curious to learn who I was, and that she invariably told them my name was Prince Charming. It was pretty of her. That was her initial compliment for Dorian when they first met. She originally complimented him by saying, "You're Prince. You must be Prince Charming," and it just stuck after that. Like she just kept calling him Prince Charming. You must do me a drawing of Sybil, Basil. I should like to have something more of her than a memory of a few kisses and some broken, pathetic words. Do you really want that, Dorian? Do you really want the reminder of how you failed? I don't know, maybe I'm being harsh toward Dorian here, but yeah, still. I was like, are you sure you want that picture? I will try and do something, Dorian, if it would please you. But you must come and sit to me yourself again. I can't get on without you. He's like, I'd like to paint you again, Prince Charming. I can never sit to you again, Basil. It is impossible, he exclaimed, starting back. The painter stared at him. My dear boy, what nonsense, he cried. Do you mean to say that you don't like what I did of you? Where is it? Why have you pulled the screen in front of it? Let me look at it. It is the best thing I've ever done. Like, I was wondering why he wasn't showing this thing to Basil. It's like, get the artist's opinion. Do take the screen away, Dorian. It is simply disgraceful of your servant hiding any work like that. I felt the room look different as I came in. And yeah, again, every single time Dorian tries to hide this thing, it reminds me of Edgar Allan Poe's. And it's the beating of the hideous heart. Like, he's trying to hide it underneath the floorboards kind of thing. It's like, just don't look. My servant has nothing to do with it, Basil. You don't imagine I let him arrange my room for me? He sells my flowers for me sometimes, that is all. No, I did it myself. The light was too strong on the portrait. Too strong? Impossible, my dear fellow. It's an admirable place for it. Let me see it. And Howard walked toward the corner of the room. A cry of terror broke from Dorian Gray's lips, and he rushed between the painter and the screen. Basil, he said, looking very pale. You must not look at it. I don't wish you to. It's like he doesn't want him to see his indiscretion. He might still feel shame over it. Yeah, he's like he doesn't want Basil to see his mistake. If you try to look at it, Basil, on my word of honor, I will never speak to you again as long as I live. I'm quite serious. I don't offer any explanation, and you're not to ask for any. But remember, if you touch the screen, everything is over between us. It's like, come on, Dorian. He might give you some keen insight when he sees it. He might help you figure out how to make it look normal again, or better than normal. Hallward was thunderstruck. He looked at Dorian Gray in absolute amazement. He'd never seen him like this before. Yeah, I guess not. The lad was actually pallid with rage. His hands were clenched, and the pupils of his eyes were like discs of blue fire. He was trembling all over. Dorian, don't speak. It's like, yeah. Yeah, let's just see what happens. But what is the matter? Of course I won't look at it if you don't want me to, he said rather coldly, turning on his heel and going over toward the window. But really it seems rather absurd that I shouldn't see my own work, especially as I'm going to exhibit it in Paris in the autumn. I shall probably have to give it another coat of varnish before that, so I must see it someday. Why not today? To exhibit it? You want to exhibit it? Exclaimed Dorian Gray, a strange sense of terror creeping over him. What else does this remind me of? I guess it kind of reminds me of SpongeBob SquarePants. It's like the first dollar, they get paint on it, and it's like you want to, like, what are all these paintings doing here? It's like the exact same thing. It's like they're trying to cover it up. Like, you want to see the dollar? Is that what you want? Kind of thing. Let's see, where are we? Were people to gape? Yeah, Gray, exclaimed Dorian Gray, a strange sense of terror. Was the world going to be shown his secret? Were people to gape at the mystery of his life? That was impossible. Something, he did not know what, had to be done at once. Yes, I don't suppose you will object to that. George Petit, that's a Parisian art dealer who sold paintings by the Impressionists, is going to collect all my best pictures for a special exhibition at the Rue de Sèvres, which will open the first week in October. The portrait will only be away a month. I should think you could easily spare it for that time. In fact, you're sure to be out of town. And if you keep it always behind a screen, you can't care too much about it. Dorian Gray passed his hand over his forehead. There were beads of perspiration there. He felt that he was on the brink of a horrible danger. Again, Dorian, it's like, why not just show him the portrait? Tell him what happened. You told me a month ago that you would never exhibit it, he cried. Why have you changed your mind? You people who go in for being consistent have just as many moods as others have. The only difference is that your moods are rather meaningless. You can't have forgotten what you assured me most solemnly, that nothing in the world would induce you to send it to any exhibition. You told Harry exactly the same thing. He stopped suddenly, and a gleam of light came into his eyes. He remembered that what Lord Henry told him once, half seriously and half in jest. If you want to have a strange quarter of an hour, get Basil to tell you why he won't exhibit your picture. He told me why he wouldn't, and it was a revelation to me. Yes, perhaps Basil too had his secret. He would ask him and try. Basil, he said, coming over quite close and looking him straight in the face. We have each of us a secret. Let me know yours, and I shall tell you mine. What was your reason for refusing to exhibit my picture? The painter shuddered in spite of himself. Dorian, if I told you, you might like me less than you do, and you would certainly laugh at me. I cannot bear your doing either of those two things. If you wish me never to look at your picture again, I'm content. I have always you to look at. If you wish the best work I have ever done to be hidden from the world, I am satisfied. Your friendship is dearer to me than any fame or reputation. As we recall, Basil originally did not want to show everybody this picture. It's not immediately clear why. No, Basil, you must tell me, insisted Dorian Gray. I think I have a right to know. His feeling of terror had passed away and curiosity had taken its place. He was determined to find out Basil Hallward's mystery. It's like he switched from the defensive to the attack. It's so much easier to ask questions than answer them. And Dorian is taking advantage of that. Let us sit down, Dorian, said the painter, looking troubled. Let us sit down and just answer me one question. Have you noticed in the picture something curious? Something that probably at first did not strike you, but that revealed to you suddenly. Basil, cried the lad, clutching the arms of his chair with trembling hands and gazing at him with wild, startled eyes. I see you did. Don't speak. Wait till you hear what I have to say. Dorian, from the moment I met you, your personality had the most extraordinary influence over me. I was dominated, soul-brain empowered by you. You became to me the visible incarnation of that unseen ideal whose memory haunts us artists like an exquisite dream. I worshipped you. I grew jealous of everyone to whom you spoke. I wanted to have you all to myself. I was only happy when I was with you. When you were away from me, you were still present in my art. Of course, I never let you know anything about this. It would have been impossible. You would not have understood it. I hardly understood it myself. I only knew that I had seen perfection face to face, and that the world had become wonderful to my eyes. Too wonderful, perhaps. For in such mad worships there is peril, the peril of losing them, no less than the peril of keeping them. Weeks and weeks went on, and I grew more and more absorbed in you. Then came a new development. He might not understand it. Try to explain it to him. Especially since it's clear that Dorian did not feel the same way toward Basil. It's like Basil's fascination for Dorian. I had drawn you as Paris. It's a figure in Homer's Iliad who is the son of Priam, king of Troy, and lover of the beautiful Helen. In dainty armor and as Adonis with huntsman's cloak and polished boar spear. It's like the hunter. Yeah. Crowned with heavy lotus blossoms, you had sat on the pillow of Hadrian's barge. The barge of Hadrian. Dorian is compared to the beautiful youth Antinous, a favorite of the Roman Emperor Hadrian, who drowned in the Nile. Like all these Adonis like physically attractive young men is like how he saw Dorian. Gazing across the turbid Nile, you'd lean over the still pool of some Greek woodland and seen the water's silent silver the marvel of your own face. It had all been what art should be, unconscious, ideal, and remote. One day, a fatal day, I sometimes think, I determined to paint a wonderful portrait of you as you actually are, not in the costume of dead ages, but in your own dress and in your own time. It's actually pretty interesting. It's like Sybil can also kind of be seen that way. It's like she portrays different roles from ages past. It's like she represents old heroines, and Dorian is the same way to Basil. It's like Dorian represents old heroes, old good-looking heroes from the past, like Hercules. Whether it was the realism of the method or the mere wonder of my own personality thus directly presented to me without Mr. Veil, I cannot tell. But I know that as I worked at it, every flake and film of color seemed to me to reveal my secret. I grew afraid that others would know my idolatry. I felt, Dorian, that I'd told too much, that I put too much of myself into it. And it's like once they see that painting, they'll know everything about me. Or, you know, it might be like a lot of painters. I think like maybe Van Gogh would be an example where it's like the art is simply not understood. Like people see it and they're like, what the heck is this? Or like maybe it's just ahead of its time or something like that. Then it was that I resolved never to allow the picture to be exhibited. You were a little annoyed, but then you did not realize all that it meant to me. Harry, to whom I talked about it, laughed at me. But I did not mind that. When the picture was finished and I sat alone with it, I felt that I was right. Well, after a few days, the thing left my studio, and as soon as I got rid of the intolerable fascination of Of its presence, it seemed to me that I had been foolish in imagining that I had seen anything in it. More than you that were extremely good looking and that I could paint. Even now, I cannot help feeling that it's a mistake to think that the passion one feels in creation is ever really shown in the work one creates. Art is always more abstract than we fancy. Form and color tell us of form and color, that is all. It often seems to me that art conceals the artist far more completely than it ever reveals him. And so when I got this offer from Paris, I determined to make your portrait the principal thing in my exhibition. It never occurred to me that you would refuse. I see now that you were right. The picture cannot be shown. You must not be angry with me, Dorian, for what I have told you. As I said to Harry once, you are made to be worshipped. Dorian Gray drew a long breath. The color came back to his cheeks, and a smile played about his lips. The peril was over. He was safe for the time. Yet he could not help feeling infinite pity for the painter who just made this strange confession to him, and wondered if he himself would ever be so dominated by the personality of a friend. Yeah, I don't think Dorian has, to this point, felt that way about anyone or anything. Not even Sybil Vane when he was like in his honeymoon phase. Like, everything she does is magic. Everything she does just turns me on. What's that reference? I want to make sure I'm crediting people when I'm making tributes.
Yeah, let me Google it. I'm forgetting. Everything she does is magic. The Police. The Police.
Whew. Yeah. Even when Dorian felt that way about Sybil, it wasn't quite to the extent that Basil felt for Dorian. Like, yeah, that was something special that was. Lord Henry had the charm of being very dangerous, but that was all. He was too clever and too cynical to be really fond of. Yeah, and I don't think anyone's felt that way about Lord Henry. There were some women who were crazy about him, but he explained, like, he breaks up with them and, yeah, he just lets them get over him. Would there ever be someone who could fill him with a strange idolatry? Was that one of the things that life had in store? It is extraordinary to me, Dorian, said Hallward, that you should have seen this in the portrait. Did you really see it? I saw something in it, he answered, something that seemed to be very curious. Well, you don't mind me looking at the thing now. Dorian shook his head. You must not ask me that, Basil. I cannot possibly let you stand in front of that picture. You will someday, surely? Never. Well, perhaps you're right. Now goodbye, Dorian. You've been the one person in my life who has really influenced my art. Whatever I've done that is good, I owe to you. You don't know what it cost me to tell you all that I've told you. Dorian, you're forgetting your part of the bargain, dude. It's like, if, you said, like, tell me your secret and I'll tell you mine. So, make with the reveal. Okay. My dear Basil, said Dorian, what have you told me? Simply that you felt that you admired me too much. That is not even a compliment. I think it is, Dorian. I beg to differ. It was not intended as a compliment. It was a confession. Now that I've made it, something seems to have gone out of me. Perhaps one should never put one's worship into words. It's like he's saying, like, you shouldn't explain your feeling. You shouldn't describe your affection for somebody. It was a very disappointing confession. Why? What did you expect, Dorian? You didn't see anything else in the picture, did you? There was nothing else to see. No, there was nothing else to see. It's like he hastily changes the subject. Why do you ask? But you mustn't talk about worship. It is foolish. You and I are friends, Basil, and we must always remain so. You've got Harry, said the painter sadly. Oh, Harry, cried the lad, with a ripple of laughter. Harry spends his days in saying what is incredible and his evenings in doing what is improbable. Just the sort of life I'd like to lead. But still I don't think I would go to Harry if I were in trouble. I would sooner go to you, Basil. So why not show the portrait, Dorian? It's like, come on. You will sit to me again? Impossible. You spoil my life as an artist by refusing, Dorian. No man came across two ideal things. Few come across one. I can't explain it to you, Basil. It's like lightning doesn't strike twice, kind of thing. I can't explain it to you, Basil, but I must never sit it to you again. There is something fatal about a portrait. It has a life of its own. I will come and have tea with you. That will be just as pleasant. Yeah, it's kind of like the way Native Americans used to think of pictures. It was like an old Native American belief. It's like every single time you have your picture taken, it's like part of your soul is taken with it to form the picture. It seems like some elements of that way of thinking are evidenced in what Dorian just said. It's like a part of you goes into the picture. I think that's kind of superstition. I don't see that thinking is more than superstition. Pleasanter for you, I'm afraid, murmured Hallward regretfully. It's like all the better for you, Dorian. Now you don't have to sit for my pictures. And now goodbye. I'm sorry you won't let me look at the picture once again, but that can't be helped. I quite understand what you feel about it. It's like that child psychology, like reverse psychology thing again. It's like, oh well, guess I won't have to look at your picture again. We'll see if Dorian changes his mind when he says this. As he left the room, Dorian Gray smiled to himself. Now he just falls through. Poor Basil, how little he knew of the true reason. And how strange it was that, instead of having been forced to reveal his own secret, he had succeeded, almost by chance, in wresting a secret from his friend. Yeah. It's like he forgot to uphold his part of the bargain, like I said. How much that strange confession explained to him. The painter's absurd fits of jealousy, his wild devotion, his extravagant panegyrics, his curious reticences.
I think panegyric is a word I've looked up before, but I can't remember what its meaning is. Panegyrics, praise for someone or something. Kind of like a tribute. Reticences, I think, is a synonym, somewhat synonymous. Like speeches, incantations. I think exclamation is the closest meaning. Reticence is the state of being reticent or reserved, especially with regard to speaking freely, restraint. Yeah. Reserve about something. Reservations. He understood them all now, and he felt sorry. There seemed to him to be something tragic in a friendship so colored by romance. Yeah. He sighed and touched the bell. The portrait must be hidden away at all costs. He could not run such a risk of discovery again. It had been mad of him to have allowed the thing to remain, even for an hour, in a room to which any of his friends had access. It's like he's running from the truth, Dorian is. And in my view, it will take him that much longer to climb that mountain. It's like he needs that big, the truth will be revealed moment. So that way he can, conquer his problem. But
it is sad, Basil and Dorian's relationship. They may never yeah, Dorian, Basil's affections for Dorian will probably never be realized. It's like some letters are never received. Some love letters are never received by their intended recipient. It's like some wishes fall on deaf ears. And that's the way that Basil feels for Dorian. Okay. That was chapter 9, guys. A picture of Dorian Gray, Oscar Wilde. Overall, pretty good ride. I'll be right back. I'll have another exercise stream. Gonna take a quick bathroom break, and then I'll be right back. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you're enjoying this series with me.